Welcome back to the Wordy Nerdy podcast. I'm Ren.
I'm John.
And today we are talking about a few movies that we recently saw that have come out in the last 2 or 3 weeks. That would be Ryan Coogler's Sinners and Marvel's Thunderbolts, which apparently I found out the official title isn't actually Thunderbolts. That's why I had the asterisk. Avengers. Yeah, well, hang on. Let me set it up because that's a spoiler technically, but whatever. Yeah, it is called The New Avengers, and it's funny because they kept it as a surprise or whatever, but then Marvel started changing all the marketing for it less than a week after the movie came out, so I don't even know what the point of that was.
Yeah, they kind of just spoiled it for anyone who did not see it
opening weekend. Yeah. So it's I mean, it's not a huge spoiler, and also just it kind of doesn't matter, whatever. But I thought that was an interesting marketing thing because I knew it had the asterisk or whatever, and I wasn't sure what all that meant. But yeah. So anyway, Thunderbolts by a director whose name escapes me, but I'm sure it'll come up. But I think we're going to start out by talking about Sinners first. That is the movie that took everybody by surprise. The Ryan Coogler film. Ryan Coogler, of course, is the director of the Black Panther movies and also the Creed movies. Is pretty definitely started up and coming. I would say even well known to this at this point for good reason, because I think I've liked pretty much everything I've seen that he's done. This was an independent film. This was a movie that he had made. It's not part of an existing franchise like Rocky or the Marvel movies. It is an original story, original screenplay, and it's a horror. Well, it's a thriller, horror, and also a period piece, and it involves vampires, and it's got mostly black people in it, so it's pretty much checking all the boxes. It was very interesting. It stars Michael B. Jordan in a double role as the twins, the main characters, Stack and Smoke. We watched it a couple weeks ago, and we enjoyed it, I think, quite a bit. I enjoyed it. Did you?
Yeah, I thought it was honestly still the best movie of the year.
Yeah, it's just May, but
yeah, I know it's still May. It's still early on in the year.
And I think we've seen this is the third movie we've seen, Thunderbolts, I guess, is the third movie we saw. We've seen Minecraft, Sinners, and now Thunderbolts. So that's we officially started our movie watching summer, I guess, about a month ago when we watched Minecraft. So of those three, would you say Sinners is the best?
Yeah, Sinners is the best.
It's not much competition. It goes Sinners, Thunderbolts, and then Minecraft is somewhere in the bottom. Minecraft wasn't terrible. I think we talked about that, but it just, it was what it was. But anyway, yeah. So
it was a movie.
It was certainly a movie. It's the movie of all time. But Sinners, the story is about these twins from Mississippi called Smoke and Stack, or those are their nicknames. They have other names, but it doesn't matter. That's all anybody calls them in the movie. And they have a cousin who they call Preacher Boy. He's the son of a local pastor in a small southern church in Mississippi, and they open up a juke joint, which is a dance hall type thing. And they moved from Mississippi to I think Chicago. They come back with a lot of money. It's a little bit suspicious or unknown where they get it from, although later it is revealed mostly got it from stealing from both the Irish and the Italian mobs and then pitting them against each other. Really clever stuff. And so but they start a juke joint, and there's issues with racism. One of my favorite headlines about the movie was from The Onion, where it said, "What is Sinners about? It is about the inability of Americans to discuss complex racial issues without bringing the Irish into it." And so, but no, it was really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed the character of Remick. I liked. I thought it was really well structured. What were some of the highlights for you?
Was definitely that one shot that everyone's pretty much talking about, and the Preacher Boy started singing, and you started seeing the future musicians.
Yeah, there was this thing where they talked about how music can transcend genre and it can transcend time and space. Basically, they use music as a spiritual force. Music, especially music that has the blood of the ancestors, can basically connect the ancestors and future. It transcends time. So there's this incredible shot this incredible scene really, where Preacher Boy starts to sing a song. He starts to sing a blues song with his guitar, and slowly you see to back up a little bit, in the beginning of the movie, they talk about how in every culture there are storytellers, people who use music to tell stories, and they connect across the time. And so then we have this moment where he is performing in the juke joint, and slowly you begin to see African storytellers, the griot, they show up, and they are kind of joining in. And then there's future music, there's hip hop artists, there's music from like all time periods of like black cultural music, and then there's other cultural elements because they're some of the friends of the family in the movie, Mississippi Delta Chinese, who I was super excited to see some representation of the Mississippi Delta Chinese, because that is, for those who don't know, like an ethnic group of Chinese people who live in the Mississippi Delta. They immigrated during the 19th century, or maybe the 20th, to help build the railroads and stuff mostly, and they settled in Mississippi. And so I watched a documentary about the Mississippi Delta Chinese, and it was so fascinating because it's like you had these people that were like, you know, ethnically Chinese. They had lived in Mississippi for generations. They had these thick Southern accents. It was just so cool to me to see the cultural like combining. They talked about how a lot of their food has like Chinese elements combined with like Southern food elements. So they would have like bacon, fried rice, and stuff like that. Just such cool, interesting to see the connection of cultures. But also historically, a lot of those Mississippi Delta Chinese would run grocery stores, and they were some of the only places that would serve black people because, of course, everything was still segregated, and a lot of black people weren't allowed to shop at white stores. And so a lot of times the Chinese people would let them shop at their stores, and there was a lot of solidarity there. During this scene, we also see like ancient Chinese dancers and stuff, and we see other cultures represented, and it's just so interesting and cool. And it's not even the first time that we see like cultural music and dance like come through, because the villain of the movie, Remick, he is someone who came from Ireland, and he talks a little bit about like the colonization of Ireland, and of course the oppression of Ireland by, you know, the British. He is turning people into vampires, and at one point all the vampires are standing outside because they can't go inside without an invitation, and they start singing The Rocky Road to Dublin, which is an Irish folk song, and they start like line dance, or, you know, like step dancing and stuff. So there's a little Irish culture in there, Chinese culture, African culture. It's just a whole bunch of cultures represented. Choctaw as well. I actually saw something yesterday. Kugler actually met with Choctaw natives, and like they consulted with them on like how to properly, so even though the Choctaw are only in the very beginning of the movie, but they are real Choctaw, and they some of the people who were on the horses, they also were cultural consultants to make sure that everything was represented properly, that their language was represented properly, that their culture was represented properly. And so it was, and I actually saw a post made by the Choctaw Nation's Facebook page that was praising Ryan Coogler for like doing so much work to like make sure that everything was done respectfully, and that they involved, you know, the people in their own stories. And so there, you could just tell there was a lot of love, and there was a lot of like cultural awareness, not just for Black culture, although of course that's, you know, wonderful to see, but also for like the other cultures that they talked about, you know, whether it's Chinese, Native American, like they really took the time to explore those respectfully.
When's the last time you think a movie like that took the time to actually put an effort to get every culture right? It's been a long time. I mean, I wouldn't even say, I guess, Black Panther, but that's another Ryan Coogler movie.
Yeah, that's another Ryan Coogler film. And even that, I mean, you could argue that they didn't get everything right there. It's still a Marvel film. No, I think it's really interesting how they did it. And like, you know, it's like this movie had been, I promise you that they would not have bothered to get people that were specifically Choctaw. If we were lucky, they would get at least people that had some sort of native ancestry, so like maybe like some Mexican people or something, or they would like you know, honestly, if you go back far enough, they would just have a white person with some tan makeup. I mean, we are still living in living memory. They had fucking Johnny Depp play in the Lone Ranger, remember that?
Yeah. Native American.
Yeah, played a Native American, and they were like, oh no, it's fine, because like his great grandma or something. I'm like, okay.
That movie is complete ass, by the way. I saw that opening day, and it was complete shit.
It looked like shit. I can't believe you saw it. Like, I don't even know what they were thinking with that. And but so all that to say that I really thought it was very cool how they just incorporated all of those things, and it just felt like a love letter. Like everybody felt like the actor who played Remick talked about how it was such a joy for him to play like an Irish character and celebrate his own Irish heritage. Like, it was just really cool. So yeah, even the villains got their representation right, and I thought that was cool.
Like, just one more thing, bringing back to that shot, Ryan Coogler met New Orleans sound stage to plan out the shot weeks beforehand. So,
and they did it in one take, didn't they?
Yeah, they did it in one take. He knew exactly when doing this one take, exactly where to point the cameras and everything, because he planned weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
With backup dancers and backup things.
Yeah, it's an incredible, like, it is just one of those things that they're going to show in film schools to, like, teach you how to, like, build a shot, because it's just, it's crazy how much it moves. Like, the camera is, like, rotating around the scene consistently. Like, it'll take one pass and you'll see, like, ancient African storytellers. It'll take another pass and then you see, like hip-hop artists from, like, the 80s. The Chinese girl, she's sitting and she's drinking, she stands up, and then there's, like, a Chinese dancer that appears behind her, and then it circles around, and then the whole building is, like, also burning down. Yeah. Like, they're having this vision of the building, like, burning to the ground. It is a stunning sequence. It is just a stunning sequence. It is really incredible film work.
I think another thing I want to praise about this movie is, like, half the movie's a blues movie, and then the other half of the movie is a vampire movie. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mesh. It meshes well. It's mm-hmm. not paced badly or anything. It all fits together. If I say blues movie and vampire movie, you might sound like it's jarring, but it's really not. It mm-hmm. connects really well together.
Yeah, I thought that the actors, just like the way that they told the story was like super seamless. Also, I have to say, like the casting was really good. Like Michael B. Jordan is, he's a pretty good actor. I don't have anything necessarily against him, but other than I think he's a little too friendly with fucking Jonathan Majors. But I hadn't really seen him stretched in a role really before. He's in a lot of Ryan Coogler films. I think just about all of the ones that have been mainstream really. So he clearly is one of Ryan Coogler's favorite actors.
Yeah.
But
like he's in Krieg, Black Panther,
and this,
and now this.
And then he plays two different characters too, which I think is interesting. And I thought he did a good job. But also I really loved a lot of the other performances, like Wunmi Mosaku. I hope I said that correctly. Plays Annie, who is I think Smoke's wife, and she is this like larger bodied black woman with like dark skin, and she's a practicer of hoodoo. All of that, like she is a love interest, and when I say love interest, I don't just mean like she's there and like she's kind of in the background, or she's no, she plays an active role in the film. She is the spiritual expert. She is the one they turn to for help when the vampires are a thing. Like she's the one who kind of takes charge and like knows what to do. And she is seen as desirable, as beautiful, as just amazing, like sexy, intelligent, capable woman. And seeing like a fat black woman in a role like that is really nice, because that's like, when was the last time you saw like fat, black, dark-skinned woman in like a lead romance role? That doesn't really happen that much. In fact, I even saw some of the commentary on like the video film, but they were like, oh, I didn't know that they were together. I thought she was like his mom or something, which I'm like, okay, did you really think that? Or are you just so incapable of seeing like a black woman who doesn't fit your beauty standard as like anything other than like a mammy or something? But like, yeah, she is such a great character. Annie's such a great character. And she does such a good job with the role. And I had never seen her in anything before, but she captivated me every second. And speaking of like desirable, another thing that this movie has a lot of is sex. It's called Sinners for a reason. But when I say sex, it's not pornographic. In fact, there's no nudity. There is no actual, you cannot actually see any genitals. There is no titties. There's no ass. There's no actual nudity. But there is so much sex. Like this was an Eaters film. This movie should have been called Eaters, because these men were not afraid to eat pussy. They were not afraid. Like the preacher boy and that girl that he was with was talking about, she was like, oh, let me freshen up. I walked here, and he's like, I just want to taste you. And I'm just like, God damn. Like this was a very horny film in ways that I wasn't expecting it to be. And it was just like, so I was like, oh God, I was like, I'm no prude, but I was sitting there like, oh good, great heavens, I did not know, oh my. like they were not afraid to get down. And then Haley Steinfeld and Stack and Annie and Smoke, and they all had at least one sex scene, and they was getting it. Like when Annie told Smoke, she like grabbed his junk, and she's like, your body didn't forget me, and she says it in Yoruba, I think, and they start humping. I said, whoa, okay, this is how your grandparents got down. Like, good God, this is why your grandmama had 12 kids. Like, whoa, Lord, they was getting freaky deaky. Anyway, go ahead.
I just want to touch up, like, with Smoke. Basically, he went to see his wife and everything. And then...
Who he was estranged from. He had, like, moved to Mississippi without her. She did not want to go. So she was... I think they were still technically married, but he definitely hadn't been with her in a while.
Yeah. But basically, he bought these flowers. You don't really know why he bought these flowers. Mm-hmm. Later, we find out that their baby that they had together died while they were really young. And both of them, it sounds like they grew apart because of his death.
Yes. Yeah, it's clearly had an impact on their relationship, and like there's a beautiful little grave that they have for the baby outside of her home, and he picks the flowers and he lays it at the baby's grave, and yeah, so that clearly had an effect, and they talk a little bit about Annie's magic and her prayers and like how the effect that it had. She's like, my magic is what protected you when you were out there running guns and stuff, and he's like, well, why didn't it save our baby? And she's like, bitch, I don't know. Time to fuck. But no, it was like, honestly, you see Smoke and Stack as two characters that have a lot of similarity. Obviously, they play twins, but they also have like some different motivations. Like Smoke very much wants power over his oppressors. Like he wants to be free from he wants to be free from oppression. He sees money as a way to be able to exist in a white man's world by having the money to pay for anything that you want. And Stack certainly does get that, but he also, I think, enjoys the idea of power over people and the idea of being able to control his own fate through power. So basically, later on in the film, Stack gets turned into a vampire, but Smoke does not. And Stack is like, once he joins the vampires, he's kind of like, you know what, this vampire thing ain't so bad. I kind of enjoy it, actually. And also his girl, Mary, is played by Haley Steinfeld. And this also is when I discovered that Haley Steinfeld does have a little bit of black in her. It was one of those things that I feel like I talked to several other black people who had this similar experience where they kind of cocked their head at the screen and said, now that you mention it, yeah, I see it. There's a little black there. I think her grandfather was half black or something like that. Yeah, so she basically plays a character, Mary, who is white passing but has a little bit of black in her, and is friends with the black people and hangs out with the black people. And she had a relationship with Stack, but Stack basically broke it off because he was like, look, we can't, in this world, like, you look white, and a black guy and what looks like a white girl just can't, that's not going to work in this society. So for your own sake and for mine, we just can't do it. And so there's some bitterness there, but they end up reconnecting anyway, and they both end up getting turned into vampires. And so they end up running away together, and that's a whole thing. But yeah, Stack enjoys the oneness of the community of being with the vampires. And there's also there's a running theme of sort of just like how the vampires represent, in some ways they represent very literal cultural appropriation, because of the way that he's like literally taking from these people, he's absorbing their cultures. Like he threatens the Chinese wife with after turning her husband into a vampire, he threatens that he's going to turn her daughter, and he speaks to her in Chinese and in very like suggestive language. And he's like, because we basically share a mind as a hive of vampires, so I can now speak the language your husband speaks. And he even makes a sexual comment to her in Mandarin, or I think it's Mandarin. And it's very creepy, but it's also just, it shows how like he sees his family of vampires as like this like congregation of these people that, it's a mix of races and cultural backgrounds, but we all have like this power now because we have vampires. And so obviously there's limitations. We can't be in the sun and stuff like that, but we also have power over people. We can turn people, we can kill people, we can eat people, all of that stuff. Remmick's sort of misguided attempt at community building, I guess.
I just find it like talking about that. He was like saying, hey, come join the community and we can take down all the people that oppress us.
Yeah.
We can take down anyone who's racist to us. We're a community. Just come join us as vampires. Come on. We're not that bad.
And he knows how to like adjust his pitch based on who he's talking to. Like the way he tries to pitch it to Grace, the Chinese mother and wife, is like different than the way he tries to pitch it to Smoke. But he, is very good at sort of getting at people in where, meeting people where they're at and stuff. Very sort of manipulative, but very interesting characterization. And I think it was funny because the Choctaw, there are these Choctaw vampire hunters, which I would pay money for, like, a Ryan Coogler directed TV series about the Native American vampire hunters. I just want backstory on them because they seem so cool. And we only got to see them for like 5 minutes because they got the fuck up out of there. They really said, look, that guy, the clans people let the vampire into their house. He's like, oh no, I got attacked by Native Americans. Of course, he used a few slurs, but then, this is a period piece. So a lot of times when they did not say Native American, they said other things. They didn't say black people, they said other things. But but anyway, so he like hides in the clans people's house, and then the Choctaw show up and they're like, hey, that guy you just let in is very dangerous, he's a vampire. And then the sun's starting to go down, and his partner's like, hey, let's get the fuck up out of here, in their language. And he's like, all right, well, good luck. We tried. It's like, I told you, I done told you there's a vampire in your house. You do with that what you will. I'm out. We ain't sticking around. And they didn't come back for the rest of the movie. They said, y'all can handle that. We are done. We told you. We getting the fuck up out of here. They said, we ain't. And I mean, it's like, I'm like, y'all, like, look, we ain't doing that much for these white folks. Like, y'all already stole our land and shit. Like, we're just, look, we were friendly enough to give you the warning. Make of that what you will. Have a good evening. So no, but it was really, I really enjoyed that.
I just also want to praise, like, how they were able to take vampire rules, like, you have to be allowed in, like, in a tense way. Like, it was intense when, like, a new person turns into a vampire and they come up to the door and you're like, oh, are they really a vampire? And they keep having this conversation trying to get your welcome in or everything. And it was just... Yeah,
the way that they did it, it wasn't just like the way that, like, for instance, the guy that plays Cornbread, Omar Benson Miller, first of all, it was really cool. I saw him in an interview. He talked about how it was for him to play this role because his grandfather was still alive, and his grandfather, or actually, no, I think it's just his father. His father he was a sharecropper in Mississippi in this time period. So he's like, I was able to ask him directly, like, what was it like going to a juke joint? And, like, what was it like being a sharecropper and all that kind of stuff? And get, like, firsthand information. He's like, so I'm only one generation removed from that being my family's reality, and now I get to play him in a movie. And so I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, Cornbread, he's basically like the bouncer of the club. He goes off to go to the bathroom, and then he gets attacked by the vampires. He comes back and he's like, go ahead and let me inside or invite me inside or something. And Annie's like, your big ass has never needed an invitation before. What the hell are you talking about? And like Annie is the one that's on top of it because the rest of them are like, oh, where have you been? And Annie's immediately like, nope. Like, I don't buy this for a fucking second. I know what's going on here. And so it was really fun to see like how they were able to maintain a level of tension even with the silly like vampire rules about like, oh, you have to be invited and you have to like, obviously sunlight and stuff like that. They incorporated garlic and all that kind of stuff, but the invitation in was definitely like I think the biggest one of the biggest like things that they did in a way that did not feel like corny or cheesy.
No, not at all.
Miles Canton plays Preacher Boy, and this is his first role ever. This is the first movie he's ever been in. This is like he's a singer. He apparently sent this. In fact, we have a quote here from Coogler talking about the audition tape that he had sent in. And he was just a teenager, and he said he was out in the, Coogler said he was just in the dark, like he didn't turn his lights on. Something about that was so intriguing. The kid looked like he was in his basement, like in between homework assignments, but he had this voice, a once-in-a-lifetime voice, and he also felt like the character. And he does an incredible job. Like, he essentially, I say that the main character, really, he is kind of the main character. Like, the story begins and ends with him. It is centralized around his character, Preacher Boy. Smoke and Stack are his older cousins, and they play an important role, but I would say that Miles is really the main character. And his journey is just, it's really fascinating to watch. Like, it starts with him, like, battered and bloodied and returning to his father's church, and then it ends with that same, it's one of those movies that, like, starts at a certain place and then says, goes back in time and then circles back around to the present. And, his performance was just so good for somebody who, had never been in a film before, and he had his voice was incredible. Oh, it was so good. I just really enjoyed his whole performance. I really did.
But his story of basically his father was telling him, you should give up on music. You should give your life to God, basically. Yeah. And you're not going to gain anything from playing blues.
Yeah, he basically thinks he's one of the, it's very one of those fundamentalist Christian ideas where it's like, that's the devil's music, and dancing and gyrating and stuff invites the devil in, because his father talks about how, like, your music invites spirits, which it does. Like, that's a thing that is true, that his music is spiritual. But, like, his father views that as, like, a bad, evil thing that's against God, and he is just so in love with music, he just can't let it go. And so there is that, and so the way his relationship with Smoke and Stack is that their fathers were brothers. So his father is the preacher, and his father's brother was Smoke and Stack's father, who was an incredibly abusive man. There are some comments and statements that make it clear that he was very abusive and violent towards his children. And that is something that has traumatized Smoke and Stack, and like really sort of frames where they, like, how they move throughout the world even now. And the guitar that Preacher Boy has is actually, it belonged to him, the abusive father. And so I always thought that, like, maybe that was sort of a nod to, like, the fact that he was an evil man, and therefore the guitar in some ways attracted, like, evil spirits, which is how you got, like, Remick and all of them. Because Remick at one point says, like, I'm the devil and I've come for you, Sammy. Also, sidebar, there's apparently a fair contingent of people who have been shipping Remick and Sammy. I don't really get that at all. I was like, I saw that. I'm gonna keep it moving because I don't like that. That has a very dark energy.
Well, it's the internet. They ship.
I mean, yeah, it's the internet. But they were like, oh, he wanted Sammy in particular. I don't know. Okay, I don't. Sammy's like barely 18. I know, like, I was just like, okay.
The only reason why he wanted Sammy was to play guitar so he can see the people.
Yeah, he wanted to connect with it. He's like, I'm stuck here in limbo. Because vampirism is like a sort of limbo. And I think he even has a comment that makes some reference to the fact that the person who turned him was one of the, like, colonizers, like the British colonizers or something. So the idea that, like, vampirism in this movie is a literal manifestation of colonization. Like, Remick has been separated from his family and his culture because he was turned into a vampire by colonizers. And that his spreading it is just like spreading colonization and appropriating culture and stuff like that. So yeah, vampirism is kind of like it represents a lot of things in this movie, but colonization is definitely one of them. And that's another thing too, like this whole, like, leeches, bloodsuckers, culture vultures. We have all sorts of terms for cultural appropriators. And I think it's so cool and brilliant that, like, to turn vampirism into a very literal metaphor for that.
Wrapping it to, like, the finale of this movie, we finally catch back up to the first scene of the movie, him showing up all bloody and everything, and I'm really happy he went on this journey and noticed, even though he went all this horrible stuff with the vampires, he still wanted to continue on playing the blues, because later on we see him play in this club, and it looks like he's a famous blues musician with a bunch of gold records, and he has continued his art form, his dream. He didn't let his horrible father ruin his dream of, like, saying, you have to believe in God, you have to give up on your dream. He continued pushing it, no matter how horrible that night was with the vampires.
And he has that line, because later he reconnects with Stack and Mary, who are still alive, of course, because they're vampires, so they're perpetually young and don't die. And they show up to see his blues set, and they even offer to turn him into a vampire. They're like, hey man, we can live forever, you can keep on making music if you want to. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm good on that. I think, I've seen the world, I've seen enough, like, I don't want to live forever, but I have enjoyed my life. And he says, like, that night, as I still have nightmares about that night, but before the vampires attacked, back when I was just playing the music, it was the best night of my life. And he asked, like, was it like that for you? And Stack talks about, he's like, yeah, like, that was the most free I've ever been. It's the last time I saw my brother and the last time I felt free. And it was a really touching moment or whatever. And that you just see them sort of take their alternate paths. And also it ends with, like, Smoke, he kills all the Klansmen who tried to jump them. And then he dies and gets to be reunited with his wife Annie and their baby. And he gets what he wanted, which was to be back with his family and to have the freedom from his oppressors. Like, he has the ultimate freedom to just be with his family and not have to worry about the bullshit of the world anymore. And his brother, Stack, he has the freedom to continue to navigate the world, but on his own terms, because he has his girlfriend Mary, and the thing that was holding them back is the, racism and other power structures that existed that held them back. But now they're above that because they have power. Anybody who tries to fuck with them, they can literally kill. So it's like they have the power over their oppressors. Like there's sort of this tug of war between the freedom from your oppressors and the freedom over your oppressors, and Stack wants more freedom over them, whereas or power over them, whereas Smoke wanted more freedom from them, and they both ultimately kind of pursue different paths to get what they want. And it's really interesting how it was done. It's really good. It's really good storytelling. Honestly, one of my favorite video essayists, FD Signifier, made a post on his YouTube where he was like, "Are y'all gonna be mad if I say I don't know that I have a Sinners video in me? Like, I don't really know if I have enough to say to justify a video." And some people were like, "Yeah, I mean, sometimes art just does the job and there's nothing more to say." Like, I think Sinners says everything that it needs to say. There isn't even a need. I mean, you can talk about it, but like a lot of what Sinners says, it just says it. And it's one of those pieces of art that just does what it needs to do and does it well. And it honestly doesn't even require a whole lot of deep analysis because it wears itself on its surface. And I think that that's really cool.
What do you think is the odds of this, like, winning awards, like in Oscars and stuff?
I mean, I think it's possible. I see the Oscars has weird rules about like what time frame or like what actually qualifies for a nomination. But if it qualifies for a nomination, I could certainly see it. If not winning an Oscar, I could certainly see it winning other awards.
Yeah.
Like, there's Golden Globes, there's Screen Guild or Screen Actors Guild, there's a bunch of stuff. So I could definitely see it winning something.
But it better win music, like hands
down.
Yeah,
the music. The music. The soundtrack is so good. Oh my god,
it has to win music.
I think it put Rocky Road to Dublin in like the Billboard top 10.
Yeah.
Which is so funny to me. The music was it was incredible. Like, and then there's several other songs, and again, there's a lot of folk songs in there. Honestly, it reminded me of "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" in terms of the soundtrack, where it had a lot of like cultural, like Southern music. I love bluegrass, I love gospel, I love folk music, I love like Irish folk music, American folk music. I am a sucker. Any kind of folk music I love. I've always loved it. That's why "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" is one of my favorite films and one of my favorite soundtracks. And it very much, it reminded me of that, just having that sort of like, again, I think music is magical, and I think it is spiritual, and it connects us to our past, and I think the music did a really good job of doing that.
Do you have any final thoughts about this movie until we move on to like the next movie?
Just that it's good, and you should go see it, and it should win awards, and Ryan Coogler is a brilliant director, and I want to see him do more things. Funny enough, I think this is a great transition over to Marvel, because I heard that there were some people who were working on Sinners that originally were working on Marvel's Blade, and they jumped ship because Blade has been stuck in production hell for like 20 years, and so they ended up working on, like, well, we can work on this other black vampire movie that might actually get made, and that's a perfect segue into Marvel. But first, a little commercial break. If you enjoy our show and you want to support it, you can always check out our Patreon and also our YouTube channel, obviously the one that you can see/hear this podcast on, but also I have my own YouTube channel called Rinstar Presents, which I'm hoping to make some content for soon. So lots of different ways that you can support us if you are so inclined. Anyway, transitioning over to talking about Marvel's Thunderbolts.
Yeah. One thing I do want to bring up, most recently there was this big article from Wall Street Journal called "Disney Wants More, Now It Wants Less." But it basically went into the transition after Endgame and how Disney launched Disney Plus, and pretty much talks about what we all expected that happened. Disney wanted more content for their streaming services. They went to Kevin Feige, Marvel, and Kevin really didn't want to make these mediocre TV shows. He made them out of obligation, because what are you supposed to do? If your boss wants something, you're gonna do it, no matter what. This led to a bunch of mediocre movies and TV shows that a lot of people did not like, and ruined Marvel's reputation. And I think the main reason Thunderbolts has got this hype necessarily is because it focused on what made Marvel in the first place. I'm not saying Marvel movies have always been good or anything. God, no. Mm-hmm. They always have mistakes here and there. But what made Marvel was the characters. Focusing on the characters.
Yeah.
And we haven't really had Marvel movies like that I thought was going to be the last one that would concentrate on characters, where it's Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But I'm surprised this one, similar things, like take a bunch of characters that no one really cares about necessarily before you go into the movie and make them interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. So, like, this movie, it was directed by Jake Schreier, who's only ever done, like, two or three other feature films, so not a whole lot. But the screenplay was actually written by Eric Pearson, and he actually wrote the screenplay for Black Widow. Mm-hmm. And he had brought this to Marvel as an idea. Like, I think that Yelena has the power to be a leading lady. Like, I think that she could lead a story. If you wanted to do a follow-up to this. And I think Black Widow is the one that has the in credits teaser where Valentina meets meets Yelena for the first time. And so he's like, yeah, I think that we could spin this off. So he wrote Black Widow. He also wrote for Thor Ragnarok. But yeah, so he wrote this screenplay, and I thought that the screenplay was actually like just really, really good. I liked it a lot. So yeah, he's a good writer. And honestly, it's like, I mean, Black Widow definitely wasn't a great movie, but Black Widow kind of could never be a great movie just because of the limitations, because everything that like Marvel did, they kind of fucked it up, because it was like Black Widow was like, you know, it was in production hell for a long time, and then they ended up releasing it after the character had been killed off, so that was dumb, and so it had a lot of limitations as a film to like a good job with what limitations that Marvel gave it. But I thought that they really expanded on it. Yelena, I think, is an amazing character. I've always enjoyed Florence Pugh's performance as Yelena. She shows up in Hawkeye a bunch, and I loved her. I loved her chemistry with Haley Steinfeld. Haley Steinfeld mentioned. Haley Steinfeld's been in a lot of stuff lately. But I enjoy her performance a lot, and she basically is the main character. But yeah, this is, like you said, very character driven and grounded. And like the big bad is not like some alien in the sky or some laser or something. Like it just feels grounded, because I feel like a lot of the Marvel movies that have come out recently have just not felt. They just haven't felt grounded in anything. They feel too detached from like personal stakes. It's like, oh no, there's an alien monster that wants to do a bad, and we have to stop them from doing the bad. But like, and then, you know, you have to watch like 6 more movies and TV shows to understand what the hell is happening. Like Ant-Man, for example, that shit sucked. And so I think that it's so much more interesting to follow these characters, sort of a ragtag group of characters, and get to know them a little bit more. And I thought that it was really fun. It was fun to see Bucky again. It was fun to see Yelena. One thing that did frustrate me is I do not know why they advertised they were bringing Taskmaster back and then killed her off in the first fucking 5 minutes. I don't get what the point of that was. They could have just kept her dead if that's what they were going to do. I don't know. I really just do not know what the thought process was with that. That was like, I kept waiting for her to like pop back up. Like, okay, she's not really dead, right? Because that wouldn't make any sense. But I guess she's just dead. I really don't know. Like, I don't, because they literally have her like show up in the last movie, do the whole like dramatically open your eyes right before the end credits thing or whatever, and then she just comes back for 2 seconds and then dies. It's like, what was the point? Why? You could have just left her dead. Why? So that was a little weird to me, but overall I really enjoyed it. And one thing I really enjoyed was like, this is, I think, one of the first Marvel movies I've seen truly tackle like mental health in like a really like in-depth way. Like, it's been mentioned before, like after the blip in Endgame, there's therapy sessions. We see that like Steve is in some group therapy or something like that. So there's mentions of it, of course. There's mentions of how people felt, after the blip and losing their loved ones and stuff like that. But like, I have not really seen a Marvel film that like was this sort of direct with talking, like the main character, or sorry, not the main character necessarily, but one of the primary characters that we are introduced to is a guy named Bob, who is, from the way he describes it, it sounds like he has like manic depression or borderline personality disorder or something like that. He has delusions of grandeur. He has moments of mania and moments of severe depression. He comes from an abusive home life situation, And they really just do not shy away from all of those things. Like, I was actually very impressed with how they tackled it. Like, it wasn't just like some sort of half-assed hand wavy, like, oh yeah, I'm crazy. Like, he clearly had symptoms of like manic depression, and it manifested itself in different ways. And they even talk about, because he basically became part of this like experiment to like create another super soldier, basically, but like even more super, like they can fly and stuff like that. And Valentina had been secretly doing these experiments on people and really preying on people who were vulnerable. And so there's conversations about like, hey, when you are giving this power to somebody who already suffers from vulnerability and delusions of grandeur and severe highs but also severe lows, it is bad for him, and it makes him worse. He talked about how he was a meth addict before that and how he felt like he fucked up his life. And so he was just a really sympathetic character and really interesting to sort of see. And again, this is a character that's sort of random and you don't know much about. And so for them to introduce a new character and make me care about him was a feat, and I think that they did that well.
Yeah, because Marvel really hasn't been able to do that with like new characters they introduce after Endgame.
Yeah.
I think like the biggest one would probably be Shang-Chi. That's probably like the other one introduced after Endgame that they were able to introduce well. But I think Bob was just like a standout character. His talk with Lena in like the bunker, where he was talking about how you don't let this darkness consume you, basically, was something I don't think Marvel ever really
Yeah, and the way, and Florence Pugh deserves a lot of credit too, because the way that she plays Yelena as this character, that she's just like it literally starts with her standing on the edge of a building like she's about to jump, and you're like, oh shit, is she just like about to kill herself or whatever? And then it turns out she has a parachute and she's jumping on purpose. But it really frames like Yelena's has this whole journey where she's like, yeah, no, I am deeply broken and depressed, not only because I've lost my sister, who is the person I was definitely closest to in life, and because of the blip and everything, and in fact, she got blipped, right?
Yeah.
So she didn't even wasn't even around when her sister died. Like she never even got to say goodbye or anything like that. And that was probably the only thing that like kept her tethered at all to like not being a full blown villain, is just the fact that her sister had chosen a better life. And so now that she's lost her, she feels empty and she feels unfulfilled. She's like, I don't know what the purpose of any of it is. Like, what's the point? And she is the perfect, she really balances, like, because Yelena as a character is very funny, she's charming, she's a very likable character, but she also clearly is battling some stuff, and it never feels heavy-handed. It never feels like, oh, time for me to talk about my deep traumas. It's just like, you can just tell, like, this is the person who has this sort of like buoyant, like carefree, cool girl, like aesthetic, but is like really traumatized, and it just, the way that it kind of explores that is really kind of interesting, and it just again makes her feel like a very sympathetic character that you can relate to in a lot of ways. It's like, most of us were not child assassins who were kidnapped at birth and trained in a secret government program by the Russian Soviets, but like she still presents like a relatable picture of somebody who feels unfulfilled and empty and has a lot of unprocessed grief.
She also
She
also talks about Russian Guardian, about how
Red Guardian.
Right.
John does not know this man's name.
Talks about Red Guardian, about how he never reached out to her, about how Red Guardian even talks about, like, one of the most emotional scenes was like Red Guardian and Elena talking on the street, and like Red Guardian was talking about how he didn't know Elena wanted Red Guardian to reach out to her. He felt like he's just a piece of shit dad, which technically he is.
He absolutely is. No, it's funny, like his, like that whole conversation, when she like called him daddy and started crying, I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to my eyes are burning, what the fuck? It's just because their whole relationship, like that whole relationship family dynamic is incredibly fucked up. You see that in Black Widow. I think that's one of the most interesting things you see in the Black Widow movie, is Black Widow's like quote unquote family dynamic. It's insane because both her and Yelena are not biological sisters. They were both kidnapped when they were like really young and raised, and their family is fake, basically. Alexei was just like an operative, and the person that played his wife was also an operative, and they like were playing this like family, but it was all because they were all spies. It was all like a lie, basically, but it's the closest thing to a family that any of them had, and so except for the one that played their mom that ended up being like super evil, and and so it's like the way like Yelena literally does not have anybody to consider family besides Black Widow and then Alexei, and it's like, and so but you can tell that like Alexei, and this again is something that they explored in Black Widow a little bit, like Alexei, maybe even despite himself, because first of all, Alexei's biggest thing is he wants to be a hero, he wants to be accepted and celebrated by people, he doesn't want to be seen as like this bad guy or this fuck up, and he clearly has affection for his quote-unquote daughters, even though they aren't really his daughters. He raised them and he clearly cares about them. He keeps memorabilia of them. He kept the picture of Yelena and her little soccer team. Like, he clearly sees them as his daughters and cared for them. And but he also doesn't feel like he's worthy of them because he's, kind of a piece of shit. And so and I think and that's another thing I really liked about the movie. It did not shy away from the fact that these characters, they've all done real bad things. They're not good guys per se. Like, it's not as clean cut as like a Steve Rogers or something where it's like, oh well, these are good, well-meaning people who have overall done good, well-meaning things. Like, no, I mean, they've done some fucked up things. They are fucked up people. John, who plays, John, the new Captain America, whatever, the
U.S. agent.
U.S. agent, yeah, like, he's a fuck up. He's a shit dad. He's a shit husband. He's, like, these are bad people, like, but they still have these desires and this ability to empathize, and so I like how it did not shy away from messiness. It did not shy away from, these are characters that you are going to empathize with and care about, despite the fact that they aren't clean-cut good guys. That's like kind of circling it back to some DC stuff, but that's, I think, why I really loved the Suicide Squad movie by James Gunn, and why I liked Peacemaker, because like those stories revolved around incredibly imperfect characters. These are not clean-cut hero characters. These are bad people, but like you do empathize with them and you see their struggles and you see, like, I just think it's a lot more interesting. It makes for more interesting storytelling than just, this is a good guy who did good things and you can feel good about supporting him because he's good. And it's, because life is more complicated than that,
Yeah, because for U.S. agent, like Ren's talking about, he's a complete asshole. But his dream is to be Captain America. His dream is to be this noble soldier that everyone looks up to, like, is the leader.
Very similar to Red Guardian in a way.
Yeah, but he's not. And
yeah.
He can't be.
Yeah.
Because he's such a piece of shit. Because there was a moment where they got defeated by Sentry, and they were on the street, and they were talking about, what now? And pretty much Elena was spilling... They were spilling, like, they're all pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And there was a moment like, are you going to turn to me? No, I'm not going to turn to you. You already know that you're a piece of shit.
Like, everybody knows your wife left you, like, your kids don't talk to you, you're a piece of garbage. You're aware of it. And it's just like, yeah, there's a sort of, like, aggressive self-awareness that the movie has that I think really elevates it to be as entertaining as it is, because it's like, there's no pretense. It's not like, we're good, noble people who just want to do the right thing. Like, it's like, no, they're like, even the people who do the right thing, like Bucky, for example, still, Bucky, also was, like, kidnapped and brainwashed and shit, and has done a bunch of evil shit, a lot of it outside of his control, but still, he does want to make things right, but, like, he is starts out with him being a senator, when did he become a senator, by the way? I missed that.
I don't know.
Okay, I was expecting maybe you as like, did that happen at the end of Winter Soldier and Captain America or something?
No, I don't actually know when that took place.
Did it maybe happen?
Maybe it happened.
Maybe it happened during the Captain America movie we didn't watch.
I don't know. I don't know. Put it in the comments below where that happened.
Maybe because we still haven't watched the
Brave New
World. So I really truly don't know when that happened, but he was a senator, and I almost bust out laughing when I saw it. Like, Senator Barnes. I'm like, can we be so for real? Like, please be so fucking for real. The fucking rogue agent that's like 120 years old. It's gonna be fucking Senator. Be so for real. This is not gonna last, and of course it didn't. Although and also the movie balances like heart and humor really well, and like it knows when it needs to be intense and emotional, and it knows when it needs to lighten up a little bit. Like one of the things so basically a Sentry and the Void are two different characters, which this, I know you don't really read comics, but this is also true in the comics. Sentry and the Void are kind of a two people, one body situation. So they're sort of alter egos. And the Void is like the manifestation of Bobby's like inner demons, his loneliness, his depression, his isolation. And so one of the things that he does is like inadvertently when he touches people, he makes them see like the worst of themselves or like their worst moments or most traumatic moments and stuff like that. And and he also, of course, just is constantly carrying his own worst moments in his head. And so at one point they like enter the shadow realm because he's like sucking all of New York into his shadow realm where everybody like sees their worst nightmares and worst moments and stuff. And and Yelena enters there voluntarily trying to get to Bobby so that she can convince him to like come out, because he's basically like sort of hidden inside that room where the Void has completely taken over, and she's trying to get Bobby to come back and take over so that he stops swallowing New York. And so there's a lot of really intense moments. Like the scene that Yelena keeps seeing is her first kill, which was one of her classmates when she was just a little girl, and it's like, oh Jesus, it was really fucked up. But then like so they're all seeing this like stuff, but there's a point where the other Thunderbolts go in after her to try to find her, and we don't see what all they see, but we see them when they catch up with them. And so she's like, oh, are you guys okay or whatever? And Bucky goes, yeah, no, my past is great, so I'm fine.
It's perfect. A+.
Bucky just looks so tired and is like, look, then this is not the first time I've had to face like really traumatic memories, so like it's just another Tuesday for Bucky.
And I think that's the reason why he like became a congressman. He's like lost completely.
Yeah.
He does not know what to do.
He doesn't know what to do to make the world a better place. Like he tries the hero route, but the Avengers kind of don't exist anymore. Yeah. Steve's gone. You know, like a lot of the Avengers are just sort of gone or doing their own thing, or there's weird space shit happening. I don't know. Everybody's in different places right now. He wants to make things better, but like he even talks to one of the establishment Congress people, and he's like, we need to do this, we need to like take this direct action. And he's like, man, that's not how politics works. So we gotta shake hands and kiss asses and like do all this politics stuff. And Bucky's just like, I don't want to do that. Like I want to fix shit. And so it doesn't take long for him to go fucking rogue, because it's like he was never going to be the guy that just like has meetings about things. He wanted to do things about things.
Plus, this is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We gotta do shit.
Yeah, we gotta do shit. This isn't the, let's follow Bucky's career as a congressman. Who cares?
Like, one thing I want to talk about, like, I kind of wish, like, Bob touched Ghost. Bob, throughout the movie, like, touches Elena, touches John Walker, and you see their most painful memory. And we don't really experience that with Ghost. And she is kind of just there. I enjoy her in the movie, but I feel like this was a chance for them to develop the character a little bit more. Because the last time people even seen this character was Ant-Man and the Wasp, a movie that barely anyone talks about anymore.
Yeah, much like all of the Ant-Man movies, it left very little cultural impact.
Yeah.
I think the biggest cultural impact Ant-Man has left is the meme of him crawling up Thanos' ass during Endgame. I think that's like the biggest cultural impact that Ant-Man has left.
Yeah, it actually is. I would definitely say that is the biggest cultural impact.
Ant-Man movies are very bad and boring and dumb, and yeah. I really am reeling at how bad the third one was. Like that horrible CGI of that giant face and the giant Mordok or whatever. That shit was bad. That shit was real bad.
Yeah, it was god awful.
That shit was some ass. And then they were like, oh, Kang is the big bad. Oops, just kidding. Kang is a fucking wife beater. We gotta change course. Oops. And so, like oh Lord. Anyway, the MCU is still in shambles, I think, but this was a good movie. I enjoyed it.
So, my question to that is like, how much good stuff do you think Marvel has to put out to like redeem themselves necessarily, or do you even think that's possible necessarily?
I don't know that. I think that Marvel, honestly, I think that Marvel could use a hard reset. Like, I firmly believe, obviously it's too late for this, but I have said before, and I'll say it again, that I think they should have stopped at Endgame and not made another movie for, like, 5 years, and then, like, really took some time to, like, process, what they wanted to do or where they wanted to go, and then rebooted the franchise with, like, fresh eyes. And you can maybe reintroduce or incorporate some of the characters or the actors that still want to be involved, but like just a hard reset is what they needed after Endgame, I think, because I think that since like Phase 4 we've been kind of lost, and so I think that this was definitely good, and I think that if Marvel, one of the things I think, if Marvel releases more independent-ish, I mean, they're not independent, obviously, they're Disney films, but still, the fact that, like I said, the director of this film had only directed, like, 2 other movies, and they were, like, it was, like, one of them was an adaptation of, like, a John Green novel, and the other one was, like, some random indie film I've never heard of, and so I think that, like, introducing new directors with fresh ideas is how Marvel continues to make good stuff. It's, like, no more of these corporate hacks that just release schlock. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of formula-driven, like, superhero movies. If you want to make a movie that interests me, then I want characters that I can relate to, I want stories that I can understand, and I want some new blood in the writer's room and in the director's chair to, like, do more creative things. Because the last 3 movies that I really enjoyed in the MCU were, like, Guardians 3, Wakanda Forever, and in this movie, and all of these movies had directors that were given a lot of freedom to do what they wanted to with the story, instead of being beholden to, like, the shareholders and, like, oh, we need to do this and that. And so I think that's the only way that they can continue to make stuff that's worth watching, is, like, by letting it be character driven and letting, like, lesser known people have creative freedom to make the movies they want. Because speaking of creative freedom, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's still Disney related. I found out, so you know how that fucking live action Lilo and Stitch, how everyone was upset because Pleakley has been de-ossified and turned into some boring white guy, and like the idea that that Pleakley in a dress was like first of all, Pleakley is a drag icon. She's so iconic. Everyone loves Pleakley, and it was so offensive that they changed that. But I found out that the director actually made a video recently where he basically said, I actually tried to have, he had concept art. This was some of the concept art. He's like, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted Pleakley to be an alien in a dress, and Disney was like, nope.
Why?
Because the conservative shareholders don't want that gay shit, John. He didn't say all that, but I'll say it.
Like, okay. I am so tired of Disney trying to say they're, like, with the times, or saying, like, oh, this is the next gay character, or whatever. I am tired of that. Actually do something. Actually do it if you're actually going to post all these articles.
They don't have balls. They do not have the balls to do it. They will bow to their shareholders every time. In an increasingly, like, fascist, conservative world, which, this is the one we currently live in, it's like, Trump's fucking president, and they're like, oops, we gotta stop that woke shit. It's just like with like, Target. It's like how so many companies, like, 4 years ago were like, look how woke we are. Black Lives Matter, you guys. And then as soon as Trump took office, they were like, whoa, thank God we don't have to pretend to care about the niggas anymore. They immediately reverted back to these, like, uber conservative, like, no one even, like, Target's like, you know what, we're gonna roll back DEI. Who cares about, like, black people and feminism? Like, just, like, so bad. Or they took down their pride displays because a bunch of conservatives kept complaining about it and, like, tearing the displays up and harassing the workers. And instead of just protecting the workers and ramping up security and telling those bigots to go fuck themselves, Target was like, okay, we'll just take the gay shit away because we don't want to make you guys mad. And it's just like,
Like, I am tired of people, like, when people say woke or anything, they just basically say it's something different. Yeah. And I like things that are different. I am so tired of this.
No, John, I want my cis white males doing the same thing they've been doing for the last 150 years.
That's how we got in this situation with Marvel. It's boring as shit, and then when they do something...
Go woke, go broke.
When they do something interesting, people talk about it. Like for this movie, they tap into mental health. And it's actually interesting to watch and care about these characters because it's something different other than this cookie-cutter stuff you're talking about. That Marvel...
Wokeness.
Yeah, whatever.
Wokeness, John. Because the wokeness is when I have to look at black people and remember that they exist.
All right. Well, go see Sinners. You might enjoy that, I guess.
I mean, well, not if I'm trying to ignore the fact that black people exist, but yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, no, it's the state of entertainment and media in an increasingly fascist world is bleak. It's bleak, friends, it's bleak. But these are two movies that we did enjoy, and we, want to continue to support that so that it continues to be a little less bleak.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts about Thunderbolts necessarily, or Sinners?
These are movies. I know you don't really do number ratings. I typically do. I would say Thunderbolts is a solid 8 out of 10, and Sinners is just about a 10 out of 10, I think. I think they're both really good movies, and that they are, there are creative minds that are still making art. In a world where people are using AI to shit out a bunch of slop all the time, it is nice to know that there are still people making art.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Sinners, still the best movie of the year. Go out and see it if you haven't. Thunderbolts, it's pretty good. Not like the top 10 Marvel movies, but definitely go out and see it. It's
of the things that Marvel has released in the last 5 years, though, definitely in the top 5.
Yeah, definitely in the top 5. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we will hear or see y'all, or you will hear us, whatever. We will see y'all next time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.